Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Rule the Roost podcast. A man that needs no introduction. Ricky, you're joining me.
Hello.
Thanks for coming back, mate. How are you getting on?
All good, mate. All good. I always love coming on here. Always. So whenever you want me to come on, it's just trying to just being busy, innit? You know what I mean? Always trying to.
Busy and important.
Wouldn't say important, just dog's
I'd say
body.
important. I'd say you do a vital service to people with your podcasting.
Thank you. As
well as other things, obviously, vital service to your family and all that type of stuff.
Fuck them. Podcasting is my life. Is where I'm at.
Very much enjoyed. I'll give you a plug up front. Latest Lads and On. I liked your chat on toxic masculinity. Very thought provoking.
Thank you very much, mate. Thank you. It's one of those pods where I came away. You know when you record and you have an idea of what you want to capture. Sometimes it doesn't go to plan. Sometimes it's just knob jokes. Sometimes it's like, well, what can you do? If the conversation didn't flow that way, it didn't flow that way. And there's nothing much you can do about it, really. But that really captured what I wanted. So it pleases me that you found it enjoyable to listen to. So thanks. Nice one, mate.
Have you got much... you got much blowback from it? Much of the you two are trying to be too woke or anything, or is
none. No, because listening back, I don't think there was. It wasn't really that style of about being woke or anything like that. I think there was a couple of challenges of how men actually feel about being masculine and stuff like that. And where we are today with it, because, we can, Flav and I can talk relatively freely about it as two 40-year-old men, in terms of being cancelled or anything like that. It's not like, talking for me specifically, it's not like I've got a huge audience or anything like that people are going to turn their back. So, we were quite honest with it. But yeah, there wasn't any kind of like, oh, this is woke, what is this nonsense? I just think people enjoyed the chat.
Good, yeah, it is good, and that's what I like about your pod. Is it feels like you two are never saying this is how you should think and this is how you should feel. A lot of the time, you've got your starting point, the conversational point that will be the title of the episode, and you'll just be kind of figuring it out yourselves as you kind of shoot the shit, if you like, as people say.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's good format, mate. Really enjoy it. But
thank you.
Check it out, lads. I don't know if you've not heard it yet. The latest, well, actually. By the time we record, Quickie with Ricky's out now, is it as well? So
yeah, dropped this morning. Quickie with Ricky, yeah.
So the last one before this latest episode of Lads and On, but also check out the latest one too, obviously.
Yes, please do. Lads Anonymous, available free on every single fucking platform going.
So, mate, how have you dealt with an international? Have you enjoyed the break from Tottenham? Like, you get to delve into some of these meatier topics, like you're saying, or do you end up missing them?
It's go through peaks and troughs, really. I'm kind of like kicking my heels, a bit bored at the weekend, and bored as in the fact that you normally have a focal point. I need to be back at 2:00 because Tottenham are playing, or that I'm actually going to the game, so I'll be out all day Saturday or something like that. So when it isn't on, you miss it. You miss the kind of the routine of it all, of what you're doing on, I don't know, on a Sunday and trying to make it back in time from visiting family, or either that you're going to the game. You do miss all those. You miss your mates. You miss the chanting. You miss the drinking beer. All those things. But watching us play football, I don't miss at the moment. There isn't a bit where I'm like, it's just really hard to, the goal we scored against Alkmaar, where it was just like total football. It was a beautiful goal. That is something to, to hold on to. And that's your North Star. That's where we need to get to. But it just hasn't happened at all, really, all season. Or it's got to a stage where that happens every 10th game or something like that. And it needs to be more. And I get the injuries, people returning from injuries, breaking down. I get that people need to get into rhythm. I get that people are playing with different players each week. I understand about internationals. I understand all of it, but there comes a point where I'm like, I have made enough excuses, and I've talked to this talk a lot of times on other podcasts about Tottenham and personally just the way I feel. And it's like, I need to start seeing more. And we don't, the players are back now, and we haven't got FA Cups and League Cups. We should be fully focusing on the league, and then again, we lose a game before an international break, and it's just like, fucking hell, man. Like, it's been a tough season. Like in assault courses in the army, when you're crawling under the nets and you've got barbed wire and there's like meat and dead animals hanging from it, and you're underneath just using your fingernails to get through all of it. That's how I feel like this season has been for me.
Tough
And
Mudder.
yeah, exactly. It's just been painful. It's pain after pain, really. So those are the bits I don't miss.
Did you? So basically, you miss going for a beer and seeing your mates, but all the rest of it.
But the football, no.
There is an alternative for it. You could just go to the pub. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's always an option. No, I know what you're saying now. Did you have any feeling that he might go this international break? Because I know there's been that. Oh, I think we'll give him Europa League. I think we'll give him the end of the season. I'd be lying if I said there wasn't a sneaking part of me that thought we might see a kind of quiet parting of ways during the international break. It's not really what I wanted, I would say, but I wouldn't have been surprised had I seen it.
I think I probably would have been surprised, because from the noise is what you feel from within the club, is that he'll have minimum to the end of the season, that they are understanding of the injuries and what a clusterfuck the season has been, and he's not had a fair crack at the whip in that sense, and we're still in the Europa League, so there is always that chance that we could come out of the season with a trophy and in the Champions League. Slim, I know, but I think Levy has not learnt his lesson, but that there was sacking Mourinho before a League Cup final, and it's like, do you really want to sack another manager before they could potentially win a trophy? We know we can't do anything in the league. We've got no we can't qualify for Europe again with our league position. We're just so far behind. So that's already gone, and we're not in any other cups. So it is the Europa League, and we're still in it. So he still has a job. I think we've always, the club have always had this idea that we will wait until the end of the season, or draw a line under that and think, thank fuck that's over, and then there'll be a proper sit down chat as to say, we need to hit the ground running next season. Not only that, what is our strategy going forward? What are the lessons that we learned from the season? Like our medical department, like what the fuck happened there? Like, it was almost, from the sounds of it, it was like a Game of Thrones Red Wedding where everyone was sacked, and then
they tried to hire him on LinkedIn,
and then everyone was just going on Indeed and trying to find physios on there. Do you know what I mean? It's like, what's fucking going on? Exactly that.
Getting that little email. You know how recruiters, when they'll try and force you into job. So it says you've got skills in football here, Ricky. You do podcasts about football and all that type of stuff. I've got a job here at a football club. It's actually Tottenham. Do you have any medical experience whatsoever?
It's exactly that, man. And so stuff like that, and we just need to, I think we just need to get the season over and done with, and have a bit of a proper adult chat about where things are going, how we've learned from the shit that's happened, and what is it that we plan on doing. And I say we, I mean Ange. What is it that we can't have another season where it's just a shrug of the shoulders and be like, it's injuries, mate. What can I do? It's like, what is going to be the coping strategies for that? Are you going to try and ground out points, even though you know we're injury ridden? Are you going to continue to play the same way? And it's like all or nothing. We go for the 3 points or nothing. What is it that you? Because if it is the latter, then you're going to come on stony ground there, and you're probably going to get sacked.
Because
Those conversations, those other conversations
yeah.
have to happen, really.
Because that's the thing, isn't it? There are a few of those chats, and I do get it. You know, when people say, "Well, what's he supposed to do?" That, you know, he's had injuries, and what's he supposed to do when first team players let him down? Their passing is terrible, and all this type of stuff. I'm like, well, that is his job. Do you know? Like, it's difficult, and it's difficult for us to answer. But if it was easy to answer, we could earn £5 million a year being a Premier League manager as well. Like he's not. I know people like him, and people. This is the thing about football. This is why we all get into Barneys about it, and we know this. It's an extension of ourselves, right? We pin so much of ourselves onto not only the club but certain figures within the club. And Ange Postecoglou obviously carries with him a big following of people who love him, love his backstory, love how he presents himself. And I get that when you have people like me sat here sort of glibly being like, get rid of him, I don't really like him, people feel like that's a personal attack, and that's why I expect a bit of blowback every now and again. But then I think you have to, even when you really like a player, and there's plenty of players I've loved down the past, there's plenty of managers I've loved down the past, Tino, who I still criticised at times, you have to sort of separate sometimes your emotional feeling and the evidence that's been presented before you, in that there have been bumps in the road, but it's pretty typical for a Premier League manager to face a less than perfect season, right? Like it's not all going to go his way. And I don't think you can just, again, default back to this position of saying anybody who criticises this manager is stupid or is unwilling to see all the hurdles that have been placed before him. Because, like I said, the point I keep making is I would take that on board more if Spurs were now sat in 8th and you and I were moaning, oh, God, we're going to be in the Europa Conference League this year. That's terrible. It looks like we're not even going to make it into that. Like, what was more of a conversation than Spurs being in the Champions League this year was, are Spurs going to get relegated this year? And that is just not acceptable. And Ange does need to shoulder some of that. But with all that said, the longer this goes on and the more we kind of hold on to him, and I know that we are still losing games and we lost just before the international break and all that type of thing, but there is still that part of me that thinks maybe we shouldn't get rid of him in the summer. Like, we're already, for example, we're already starting to see the press leaks. Iraola's actually not so keen on Tottenham. He's a bit uncomfortable at the idea of working with Daniel Levy and the lack of patience at the club. And I think, well, Pochettino's not going to come. He might have gone for a nice coffee with Levy, who really, I would say, if I was to project my opinion onto that, I think Daniel Levy has thought, everybody loves Pochettino. It'll be a winner for me if I can manage to get him back, even though I should have done it a couple of years ago if I was going to. And Pochettino's probably said, well, in maybe 2 years' time, I'll do it once I'm leading America into a World Cup, and that's my job now, and I can't do 2 jobs. So that's probably off the table. And then you think, well,
what's your thought on Levy going out for coffee with Poch?
I mean, it's not right, is it? Like, it is snake. Like, again, if as I've just said to other people there, if I were to separate my emotional longing for Pochettino to come back at some point, it's not right of Levy to do that so publicly. It's not. No. And I think it look, whether or not we can sort of say if it's Machiavellian or not, if he's doing it to put a bit more pressure on Ange just to let him know that he's talking to people. I don't know, as I've seen people say. I think maybe he's just not really thought about it. I think he is. I just think people who are very rich and very powerful are so much less in tune with the proles, the likes of you and I, than I think people
Speak for
sometimes
yourself,
fully
mate.
grasp. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, that car crash interview Prince Andrew did a few years ago about all the, do you know what I mean? I can't sweat. I have a medical condition where I don't, all that type of stuff. And you're just like, this is wild. It's like, it's kind of, because people are like, how stupid is he? He's so stupid. It's like, I don't think it's like stupid in the conventional sense. It's just a complete ignorance because they don't need to be concerned by us. Like
No.
we're ants in a way.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
It really is. It's kind of, it's almost like logic. It's like, he's my friend. Friends go out for coffee. I've met my friend for coffee. What's the problem?
yeah.
And
I'm
it's
gonna
like,
have a
well,
word with him and say, would you come back? You know,
there's
but
nuances to this,
yeah.
Daniel. Oh, but I just met my friend for coffee. That's all that happened.
Whilst the guy
Yeah, kind
currently
of.
whilst the guy currently doing the job is under loads of pressure. Like it's not great, is it? It isn't great.
Mate, I think it's a terrible look, really. I mean, if he wanted to meet up with Poch to be like, how's it going, mate? How's the family? Not seen you in ages. Oh, you're in London, are you? He's got a fucking multi-million-pound mansion that he probably lives in. Come round my house. Poch has probably been there God knows how many times. He could just go around his house for a coffee, or they could go somewhere proper, like off the beaten track where no one's going to find them. Have a coffee inside the cafe or whatever. But no, this is London streets outside. Do you know what I mean?
It should have
It's
gone to
like someone is going to spot you.
like a flat roof pub in Dagenham. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
You're not going to get the intelligentsia journalists in there, are you? You know what I mean? Imagine Daniel Levy in a flat roof pub.
Oh, mate. Can you imagine what? Yeah, that'd be so funny just to see the reaction.
Is he that? Is he that? That Spurs gaffer? Yeah. Bang. Would you have Poch back, Rick?
I think for the nostalgia, the way that he made us feel, the way that, you know, I've never felt that way. So I've never felt that way supporting Tottenham when Poch was in charge from out of anyone that's managed us.
I mean,
I had
we were
some.
well good, weren't we? We were
We
well good.
were we were absolutely imperious. It just didn't feel like every game that I would attend. It didn't feel like, are we going to win today? It felt like, how much are we going to win by today? And I've never felt like that. There was a part of me that felt, could we actually win the league? And it felt like I just wanted to whisper that then, as a Tottenham fan, talking about winning the title. Like, we were close, man. We were close. And so all those things makes me think, yeah. But then there's the other part of, he did have a prime Kane and Son and Alderweireld, Toby, Dembele, all these players.
Wanyama, Ericsson.
Yeah, exactly. Delhi.
Cowboy.
Yeah. So, and you just think, will he be able to come back and capture that? Do you know what I mean? And it's that part of me that's leave the past in the past, let sleeping dogs lie. And then there's the other part that is Jose, Nuno, Conte, this clusterfuck of a season. I just want to feel something again. Do you know what I mean? I just want to believe.
100%.
I just want to, I don't know, I just feel a bit almost apathetic to it all. It's like I'm watching a game, but as I'm watching the game, I'm half looking at my phone nowadays. And when the game's over, I turn the TV off and go back to my life. And it's like, I'm disappointed, but it's to be expected. Do you know what I mean? That fire, that of wanting to watch us play and feeling like that we could turn up and do something. I'm just not there at the moment. And that's not to say that Ange can't get it back and I don't back him. And for me personally, I would give him the job to, the
But
stay of
yeah,
execution. And I would give him the summer to get in the people that he wants. But I would be very strict on how I want that to be and lay out the land as to say, look, man, like if it's not going right by October, November, we're getting into, the busy football part of the season in December, where games come thick and fast. It has to be going right by then, because otherwise we will have to change direction, because you've had a whole break, you've had a whole summer, you've had new players come in, and I get when new players come in, they need to bed in, they're not all going to hit the ground running and all those other things. But how long do you keep on saying those same things over and over again and keep giving rope to that person? Because sometimes it just doesn't work. And like I said, I understand these, whether it's the training was too rigorous and that's how we got our injuries, whether it was the high line and our fullbacks and our centre backs are constantly having to do those sprints, whether it is time management during the game and when we should press and when we shouldn't, whether it's taking Romero off against Fulham and then them scoring immediately. All these different things, whether it's people are crowding out Vicario and we've left it 6 or 7 games and we still haven't put a player to protect Vicario when they're pushing him into the goal. It's like those things that we've learned, that we've seen from this season. I get it. We're all learning, but you need to act quicker and you need to identify these things that are happening. And once you've identified them, you can't shrug your shoulders and be like, well, it is what it is, mate. I want to see that you're taking that situation, the ball by the horns, and doing something to try and change the direction of whatever's going on. And yeah, I'm not stupid enough to say, well, we were playing inverted fullbacks for the entirety of the season. You need to stop doing. I understand and I see that he has made tactical changes and we're not playing that way that he wants us to play, and that we have made different changes and there's been different role changes and different players and stuff like that. And he has adapted, but I feel like he's been too slow to adapt. And that's fine, because I get he wants to stay true to his philosophies and how he plays football. But in those same instances, I don't want to see that repeated into the third season where we are now. That's not going to happen for me. And that's when I will be like, I have really had enough now. I do want him gone. That's where I'll be next season if these things continue. But at the moment, I still want him to have a fair crack at the whip, because we cannot keep going through managers every 18 months, 2 years, and not giving them the time to change things.
it's just that tricky thing, though, isn't it? It's because on one hand, I'm like, I don't want to write off another summer. I don't want to have a whole summer of speculation. We're bringing the manager too late. He hasn't had enough time to get in his own players, all that type of thing. But then there's that other bit of worry for me, that if we do hold on to Ange and we say, right, because I think there's a way to flip this in terms of Bergval's established himself, Gray has started to establish himself, Tell, if we sign him in summer, and we'll get onto him in a bit, is starting to, perhaps get his confidence back if the international break is anything to go by. Odegaard is back from injury now, starting to make a positive contribution. We're going to have Vuskovic coming in summer. There's lots to look forward to, and maybe like a summer break, everybody has a bit of a time to kind of, shake their heads a bit, come back afresh, and go.
Factory reset.
Exactly. We might see, because you can't forget how good we were when Ange first came in, right? You can't forget when how nice it looked, and there's always that carrot, isn't there, dangling somewhere where it's like maybe it'll be like that again. So I do kind of look forward to it in that sense. But then there's that other worry in me of like, what if next season starts and it's just like this again? And then we're having to sack a manager 5-6 games into a season and get somebody like quick within the middle of a season. That worries me also. So it's funny. I really have no firm kind of opinion. Look, if I was really, really pressed, if somebody really was like, give me 100 million pounds there, if you give me an answer, get rid of him in summer and we'll find someone else. I think that's what I'd be pressed into. But like I said, I'm not saying that chest out because I still feel, and it's, look, I won't start this conversation fully, but it feels all a bit more existential with Tottenham now. It feels like a lot of this, all roads lead to Daniel Levy, right? We've sort of touched on him there. And I think there has to come a point when we have to realise that, and I think we have all realised, that this is so far beyond just the manager's control now, what Tottenham have become. I think we have coasted as a club for too long. And I think there was a level of hubris there that was facilitated by the brilliance of the Kane and Son partnership, really. Other fantastic players around them, but those two. And this can be quite a nice segue. Like Jed Spence obviously recently went on Rio Ferdinand's podcast, and he was saying, when he was asked of Harry Kane, who was asking they were asking him who the best player he's ever played with, and he was just like, Harry Kane by a country mile. Sonny's great, but Harry Kane is. And when they were kind of pressing him into it, he was just like, just his finishing is on another level, and he's just, the way he thinks, the way he acts is just a completely other level, like a completely other level. It was really interesting actually as well on I don't know if you heard it, View from the Lane. Jay Harris was saying he interviewed Michel Vorm, and he said that Michel Vorm gave him this interesting insight into a young Harry Kane. And when Michel Vorm was obviously our backup keeper, a young Harry Kane in training and after training and all this type of stuff would be constantly asking him questions. When a striker's in this position, what do you do as a goalkeeper? When a striker's moving this way, what do you do? And he was just really interesting. It was really revelatory to see Kane, the way he thinks and the way he's always going on and on and on. But we obviously all knew Harry Kane was exceptional. But when you look at like what he's doing at Bayern Munich at the moment and stuff, you are like, we literally had a player in that tier just below Messi and Ronaldo playing for us for 10 years, and that the club just coasted on it, didn't they? They really did. And
it's quite funny you say that actually, because listening to the Spence interview, it's like, who do you admire as a right back? Who's your, who's the one that you? And he was like, Kyle Walker. Kyle Walker has been there, done that. Phenomenal athlete, phenomenal at defending, going for, all of that. And I was like, he used to play for Tottenham. And then I saw an interview of a journalist posing something to Modric, saying, you've been the best, player to watch as a journalist, and all this lot, kind of like not happy retirement, but I think he's going to do an extra year, or it was talking along the lines of, when are you going to hang up your boots? And he was just like this ode to Modric as a player. Modric was like, thank you very much, and really respectful. He used to play for Tottenham. And then I see Harry Kane, and he's still annihilating everyone. He used to play for Tottenham. All these players that are fucking phenomenal. Gareth Bale.
Literally one of the best players of all time.
Yeah, have slipped through our fingers. And it's like, yeah, I am. When you like look back and you like with a smile on your face, that at least you got to see them play. But they went on to bigger and better things, and we just couldn't do it for them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that is, and I don't think we'll ever be able to do that for someone while Levy is in charge. I think we'll always be aspiring to be that, we'll have everything in place that we possibly can, whether it's, data-led scouts and nutrition, medical, this, that, training, but it's always going to be a punt on a manager, up-and-coming manager or something like that, and a punt on a mixture of youth and semi-senior kind of internationals, and it's when the stars align, you get that Poch Champions League or running for the league moment. There's been none of that before, none of that after, but it's kind of like that's the sweet spot. And I think Levy will always chase after that sweet spot. He will never ever be like £100 million on a player because that's the missing piece. That's the one we need. It'll always be, what about this one? You know, he's just as fast. He does this and he does that, and yeah, he's like 660 million. I'll pay 60 million. I'm not, you know, that's overvalue. That is 110 million. Not paying that. It's always going to be that way. It will always be that way. He will never ever change. And
He's trying to find a way to do it that simply isn't what. And I think I keep talking about Aston Villa, but their model does seem quite unsustainable at the moment unless they keep being successful. But I think Villa have been pretty much the antithesis of Tottenham, haven't they? And Villa are starting to claw it back. I think they've signed a few young players and stuff, a few promising players. I think they've had a few come through their academy. But Villa are just chuck money at 26-year-olds, 27-year-olds who are proven, who are quality, spend big money on them, give them the wages that they want, and let's try and win stuff now. Whereas like Spurs, we just, like you say, we just do it too late. We're always looking for a way around the obvious, which is just spending the money when it's needed to. And Liverpool tried that for a bit, and they had a data-led acquisition team and all that type of stuff, and they built a team softly, and they built all the foundations for a great side. But ultimately, they realised we're in this up against teams like Manchester City. We just get Van Dijk, get in Fabinho, get in Alisson.
Yeah.
That's what you have to do because there's no other way to do it. Quite simply, there just isn't. And people say, "Oh well, Leicester," but come on. It's the biggest freak occurrence, and even they spent loads of money as well. Anyway, but I don't know. Let's talk about the Jed Spence podcast. Now I put out a tweet saying that I'll read it verbatim. I love Jed Spence, but I feel like appearing on this Rio Ferdinand podcast is rather ill-advised. His agent needs to give his head a wobble if he's facilitated it. And I'll just qualify that because a few people are like, why? Why do you think that? It's just an interview. It's not just an interview. I mean, like it's unconventional media. It's going on a podcast. It's not anything that's, regulated by any sort of press standards or anything like that. It's obviously going to be a much more loose conversation. And I just think my main take on it is, because a lot of people say, well, he didn't say anything that bad. It's like, well, you're saying that bad. He did say a few things that were probably ill-advised, I would say, and got kind of cornered into conversations that I think were he speaking to somebody from Sky Sports, his agent or his PR people would say, no, don't cut that out. We're not talking about that part.
Yeah.
He kind of got cornered at a few moments in this. I just think it's mostly just ill-advised because it's taken him such a long time to break into the team. He's obviously not been fancied by a succession of different managers, and we can talk about the reasons why that is. Just kind of keep your nut down a bit at the moment, lad. Like, keep letting your football do the talking. Everyone is talking about you. Loads of neutrals. I even saw when the England team got announced, loads of neutrals are even like, how the hell is Jed Spence not being picked for this team? He's one of the most informed players in the league this year. He's brilliant. He's great. Like, he's completely kind of turning over a new leaf. I don't know why he's putting himself in a position where football clubs, football managers, football people, for such a public sport, they want to keep everything private. They don't like anything. They don't like anything being out in the public at all. You've done stuff with fighting cock and whatever, with footballers, with professionals. You know exactly what the brief is. Don't talk about this. Don't talk about that. Don't bring up this. Don't bring up that. Like, always, 100%. They never want the questions that are in front of everybody's faces to be asked. Never, ever, ever. It's a very insular, very quiet game. And I think like Jed Spence doing something like this, all it does is just kind of jeopardize his position that he's managed to build up. Whether he's kind of said anything bad or not, he has gone a bit rogue in doing this, I would say.
Yeah.
And
The
I
club
just
would
think
have
it did
okayed
wrong.
it though.
Did they?
Well, no, I don't know. I don't know for certain, but the club would have said, A, you're okay to do this, and B, we have to listen before anything goes out. I'm fairly certain of that.
I mean, if that is the case, then fantastic. From what I understand, just from asking about, it does seem like he's just gone rogue. And Rio has just spoken to him directly and said, "Do you want to come on my podcast?" And he's like, "Yeah, go on then." And it has
Oh fuck, really?
taken people by surprise a bit. But I might be wrong. That's just what I've heard.
Wow. Okay. If that is the case, that's wild. I think my point is that the thing that I wanted to speak about is, for me, I am 42 years old. I see myself as an old man. I'm the millennial. I'm not the. Is it Gen Z? Is that the
It is,
new
yeah.
one?
Well, the new one's
Now,
Gen Alpha now. The Gen Alpha are the one making Gen
brilliant,
Zs look old now as well.
brilliant, good. I
In it,
really.
feel that Gen Z. Feel it. You know what it feels like to have someone breathing down your neck now? Not so smug now, are you? Like, not so smug now, you're teetering on the brink of irrelevance.
So I think part of me is that I'm every bit that millennial of, oh, while you're a professional footballer, you can't go on podcast. You can't say what's on your mind. You can't say this. You can't be open. You can't be honest. In other, spheres of the world, it's like, let's talk about your feelings. Let's talk about your mental health. Let's talk about your struggle. Let's put everything on the table, because we're not judging anyone. We need to find out why people are feeling this way. So there's these two different bits to balance. And I feel like, for me, I am that guy that's like, man, football's private. We keep everything in house. We don't go outside. Once you've done your professional career, you can write a book and then you can fuck off. All right. That's what we do. That's what footballers do. Going on a podcast when you're a current professional footballer in a Premier League team is wild, right? They don't do that. But at the same time, why don't they do that? So I can see both sides of it. Rio was saying, thank you very much for coming on. It's very rare that we get a professional player that's on here that's playing at the moment. And I don't listen to the podcast. I don't know how many other Premier League players he's had on there previously, or Championship players, whatever it might be. But that's quite a coup for Ferdinand and for any podcast, really, because I can't really recall any like current Premier League players playing. And to go back to your point of keeping your nut down, for me, it is keeping your nut down, and it's whether you agree with it or not. I don't think he is the established starting 11. He's not like been there for 5 seasons and he is our right back. He's broke into the first team this season after a rough ride from previous seasons and gone out on loan and stuff like that. And he isn't our first choice left back, and he's not our first choice right back. Now, obviously, I would like to see him take one of those spots, because he is in form. He's doing incredibly well at the moment, playing out his skin. I do think he is our future long-term fullback.
Yeah.
But at this moment in time, in my mind, I am like, keep your head down. You don't need to go on these podcasts, and you do. He was saying himself that he leads a simple life, and sometimes it's lonely. Sometimes Premier League players have their mates live in the house because it is so isolating and stuff like that. So maybe he was bored one day and he's just like, I'll go and do this podcast. Fuck it, man.
Yeah.
Or take your own advice and be not isolated, but he was saying be humble and keep it simple and just focus on playing professional football. But then I lean back on the other thing that I just said to say that there is this new way of the world, reality TV almost. It's kind of like, what are these young lads doing, thinking, seeing, saying? feeling as professional footballers. It's so interesting to get an inside track view of that. And going back to it, I want to hear your opinions on what he said that were slightly eyebrow raising, shall we say? Because when I listened to it, I was like, "This is fucking boring." It didn't really
A
give
lot of
me.
people have said that. Yeah,
It didn't
when I
give me anything as to say, "Oh bloody hell!" I didn't know that about professional footballers, and like about your struggles. You know, I didn't know whether I was doing well under Conte because he never said, "Fucking stone the Crows, man." Do you know what I mean? That's not revolutionary. Everyone knows Conte is exactly like that.
was glad he gunned him though.
Yeah, yeah,
I was
yeah,
glad it got brought up, the whole club signing thing.
yeah, 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 for
You see
sure.
the impact that that would have had on a. He said he was buzzing. He came into a big Premier League club, and then immediately the manager's like, "I don't want this kid." You
Yeah,
know what
yeah,
I mean?
yeah.
Because
Oh, for sure.
it was deep, wasn't it? It was horrible. It was a
Yeah,
horrible.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's what people remember as well. Like we're talking about him, and we'd always bring that up. That's what Conte said about Spence. He was a club signing. Whether or not he becomes, the next fucking Trent, it will always be a footnote in his career that Conte said he was a club signing for Tottenham. So it's really kind of damaging to your career. But yeah, there wasn't anything that I listened to and I was like, oh my God, like I can't believe he said that. Or
No,
he's
there
thrown
was
himself
nothing.
under the
Yeah,
bus there. There wasn't. There was
there-
slight bits that I was just
yeah.
surprised about, but so go on. I'd like to hear
I
your.
think the main bit where I was like, I would tone this down, lad, was just the main bit is when he was kind of half having a swipe at Postecoglou when he was saying that everybody was saying to him after Conte went that with the new manager coming in, he would get a clean slate and it would be a good
Yeah,
chance to like re-establish himself and get himself back into the manager's good books. And he was sort of, I think he said, we didn't even have a conversation. We didn't even have a
mm,
conversation. And I was seeing news reports being like, how are you going to get back into the manager's favour? He's like, I don't even know why I'm out of his favour, kind of thing.
yeah,
And then Rio prodded it a bit more by saying, well, he said these latest quotes, didn't he, that he kind of treated you that way on purpose to get you back on track. And quite smartly, really, Spence just didn't really talk about it. He was really quite awkward by that question. The only
mm,
other bit that I thought was a bit dodgy, not really because he actually said anything bad at all, but he was talking about what Postecoglou has them doing in training. He was talking about Postecoglou's training methods. And I was
yeah,
just saying, I just think it's kind of thin ice because I think, again, like I say, managers and people like that often don't like people knowing what they're doing behind the scenes and stuff like
yeah,
that. But I agree. I mean, at large, I agree with you. I agree with the concept that it would be nice to see players be more human. We're all bored of these media trained interviews and all this type of thing, right? And we are bored of this kind of strange, almost like Victorian veil of secrecy that exists over the
yeah,
whole
yeah, yeah,
sport, right?
yeah,
It is strange. The world has changed rapidly, and it feels like football is still rooted in another time in many respects. I think the main thing is just like, why does it have to be our lad? Why does it have to be our best player doing this? Why does he have to be the guinea pig for this? Like, just like, I think I'm just the main thing is it's not trying to, because I've had a couple of people saying like, why are you trying to stop him from speaking? And it's like, I'm not. I'm reacting to how football is. When I'm saying
mm,
it's ill-advised, I'm saying it because of this is the environment of football. This is the environment of top-level football. This is how the people in there are. They don't like this type of stuff. And so my hesitation and my anxiety about it all just comes in the form of the way I see this kid is he is right now, he's our best player. He is, I think. I think it's safe to say he is our best player right now on form and everything like that. I don't want him going anywhere. I don't want him to get kicked out of the team. I don't want opposition players to think he's being cocky. You know, he was saying the stuff about I'm not scared of anybody one-on-one. And I like that part. I like that. I like that confidence he
yeah,
has himself. I like him laughing at the suggestion that Martinelli would be able to get the better of him in a one-on-one. You know, I don't
yeah,
know
yeah,
if you got
yeah,
that, but like, it's good. I like that level of confidence. I just have that anxiety of like, I don't want that to wind up other players and trigger them and be like, right, I'm going for him. I'm going for that lad. But look, I've had a few comments from various different people. Nick Yajube at Bolt918 says, don't think he said anything particularly controversial, but I don't imagine he'll be asked to do another one. It was boring as hell.
Which is fine. Yeah, it's fine.
Yep.
Absolutely fine. There was a couple of things that did. I was a bit like careful, not in the fact that what you're saying was bad, but they were saying about Harry Kane and how does he train and this, that, and the other, and it's like, how much? What do you do extra in training, Jed? Do you work on one-on-ones? Do you work on
He was like, no,
headers?
not really.
Nah, just do my 9 to 5 training, mate, and go home. It was that kind of thing. And they were like, what, really? And he was like, yeah. And then he kind of answered it a bit more as to say, the club, you have to not run it by the club, but the amount of injuries that we've had, you've got to protect yourself, and you can't run yourself into the ground. You can't go turn up for training an hour early and then do training and then stay an hour after and keep doing that when your whole squad's dropping like flies. And then they said about Kane, and Kane used to do that, and they were like, well, Kane's a captain. It's Harry Kane who does what he fucking wants. So I'm glad it didn't go too far on that, but it was like Rio's, woo, you don't do extra training. Oh, he doesn't do extra training, mate. Oh, it was that kind of thing. And I was a bit like, okay, fair enough. And again, I think Rio said, in that same segment, what do you specifically train on? Like, do you work more towards, I think Rio was saying that he liked to receive the ball and get it out quickly. He liked to go forward quickly. He wanted to always be on the attack. So with his extra bits of training, he'll work on that, the 1-2 side of football while someone's pressing him, or work on whatever it might have been. And then he said to Jed, what do you work on, like, individually, as in, like, whether it's fitness or whether it's trying to improve yourself? And it's like, nothing really, mate. And I was a bit like, right, okay. Like, just make something up.
I do a lot of sprints. Do you know what I mean? Like, just say something. Like, you know those all like dribbling around the cones things. I do loads of that. Loads of that. Like, I imagine it's players.
Even if someone was asking me in my professional career, like social media, it's like, oh, so how do you stay on top of things? And I'd be like, I go to conferences, I go to these, I follow these. I don't do any of those, but of course that's what I'm going to fucking say.
Exactly.
So those bits. Sorry, and then there was one other thing that I kind of, not really surprising, and he wouldn't understand what he said would have any effect on the Tottenham community, but there's been a lot of discussion online that we have no leaders, that our team are like wimps almost, and there's no one leading the team. And when he was asked to say, who are the leaders in your team, they're asking for your Roy Keanes, the screamers, the shouters, get the changing room riled up. And I don't think he said anyone. He said there wasn't really people like that. And he said, Son is our captain, but he leads from example.
Yeah.
He gets in early. He trains hard. The numbers speak for himself. He's doing extra stuff in the community. He's doing what, a captain should be, leading by example. But there has been that thing online where it's like, we don't play well because there's no one barking orders and there's no, you know what I mean? There isn't that real vocal, crazy person to give everyone a kick up the arse when we're 1-0 down to Southampton at home. Like, where are those guys? And it was just interesting that with that and with the answer, it was a bit like, it was quite a delayed response. I was a bit like, I mean, it's harmless. It's what we all kind of think anyway, but then it does lead on to the fact that, is there a lack of leaders in our squad?
But he said that, but then he also, like, when he was talking further, sort of expanding on it, he did also say that Maddison is usually always checking up on him, checking up on the
Yeah.
younger players, seeing what they're
Yeah.
doing. I kind of, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I know what you mean. It felt prickly hearing that, didn't it? But then as they were kind of talking about, or at least Rio and I think it's Joel was the other presenter, was saying maybe that's just the way football's going. Maybe the whole kind of idea of, and I guess when I look at, it's hard to say, isn't it? Because when you look at a lot of managers now, they seem more, I guess the ones at the very top, I imagine Pep, well, we've seen videos of Pep giving all the players a proper bollocking. I imagine Klopp did much of the same. We definitely know that somebody like Antonio Conte did that. But then I can't imagine quite a lot of these like younger, your Nagelsmans and all that. I can't imagine them reading them giving them the full riot act, right? Giving them the hairdryer type treatment. I just
Yeah.
wonder if it is just a change. Like we're talking about the fact that we actually have a young player now going on a podcast, talking about his thoughts, talking about his feelings, being more of a human being.
Yeah.
Maybe a lot of younger players now expect to be less of a cog in the machine and have more of a kind of a democratic position within a dressing room or something like that. I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it is interesting. I mean, just in terms of like other comments, Dizu, at Rory Dilapo said, might attract more eyes on him. It's up to him to prove he's worth the attention. Tom Locke at Dune Locke said, I think he was honest. That's fine. Conte never gave him a chance, nor did Postecoglou until he had no other choice. That's true. Why can't he say that? Again, like I sort of default back to it. I don't think there's any reason why he can't say that as a human being, but it's more about how the various gatekeepers that are custodians of his career really right now feel about it. And that's sort of what I default back to. David Says at David Says 3 says, I think Rio's being a bit sly and feeding into Jed's grievances, which you feel now that he's doing well, he should be steering away from. Personally, I agree with you, and I think it's a first career mistake. It's kind of a reverse of managers throwing players under the bus. So a bit, and some people like Nick Rose said it's nothing bad. It's a Tottenham thing, said just nothing beneficial came out of it. At TJ Mott 33. Agree it's risky, but I think he came across well and didn't say anything stupid. It's sort of a mix of things. One that was quite interesting as well, on Blue Sky at Mickey GIF, Mickey Club Signing GIF said, I saw a couple of unsavoury takes that have wound me right up. Things about how he talks and about his attitude. They've proper grated me. He's just a young black guy doing his thing. How he talks, how he dresses, etc., should not be a concern. I think we can all agree with that. I think many people would say sunglasses inside is a bit of a red card for anybody, though, isn't it? But still,
yeah. You can only get away with that if you know Gallagher. Other than that, then you no, it's a no for me.
He's a young guy. He's a guy of a new era and everything. So whatever, yeah. And I agree with that. Like whatever he's saying, however he's dressing or whatever, kind of give it a bit of a rest if you're really gunning him on that one. And I do think it's interesting because I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this, Rick, because I've often thought like Jed Spence to me has always come across as just kind of like a quiet, kind of shy kid, really, right? You hear a lot of, you hear all this stuff from like behind the scenes from certain people anyway. Conte thought he had a bad attitude. People say, Neil Warnock says he's got a bad attitude, all this type of stuff. I'm not getting into libelous stuff, and I'm not saying these people's own thoughts and feelings and stuff. But you can't help but feel there could be at times, you see the way Jed Spence kind of carries himself in this interview, right? Quite a laid back, kind of just young guy, right?
Yeah.
You can't help but feel that there might be some unconscious bias at play with people at times, the way they view him, the way they judge him. We talk about this rife throughout all of society. So, he's a young black guy who's, quiet. He might be a bit more kind of laid back in his approach, but is that any different to how like Dimitar Berbatov was? And people would say of Dimitar Berbatov, yeah, but it's languid. It's what he was like. You could see him smoking a Gulwar on the halfway line and all that type of stuff, right? Do you know what I mean? But like when it is Jed Spence, I get it. People are like, oh no, he needs to sort his attitude out. He needs to not be like this.
Of course.
So, you know, I think it's a fair point for Mickey to raise. And I mean,
I wholeheartedly agree with that. Totally agree with that. And it's, at the end of the day, I'm not really fussed on how players, like, the clothes that they wear and this, that, and the other. It's all about how they carry themselves, as in their characteristics as a person. And he was fine, you know, in that interview. He didn't really give a lot away about himself as a person or anything like that. I just found it quite generic answers, really. And the glasses indoors, yeah, obviously everyone saw that. But then the way that he dresses, the way that Brennan Johnson dresses, and you know, they're young lads. Do you know what I mean? I'm the old guy. You know, I'm the dinosaur here. So, of course, the way I dress is going to be different, and in comparison to my mates and stuff like that, these young kids and what they're wearing and stuff. But yeah, it's a very valid point, and people are definitely going to be like jumping onto that side of things. But I remember when Jed first came, and you always hear rumors, man. You always hear rumors, and whether they are true or not. But I heard that he was late to training, the company he was keeping, partying, that kind of thing. So maybe that's true. Maybe it isn't true. Maybe that's why Ange sent him to Genoa to be like, you need to grow up, boy. We know you've got it in you, but you need to grow up. This is a test. And the test is, you know, sink or swim. You apply yourself, become a footballer, or you believe the hype and the money and this and that and the other. And you come through with flying colours, really. And maybe there is a bit of truth that Spence only got a chance because of our injuries. Who knows? But football works in very much when, you know, when the stars align and it's your chance and you take it. That's how it goes. You know, typical one, always Harry Kane.
Yeah.
No one saw that trajectory for him. Literally no one. But he got those chances, and when he got those chances, he built on it, he practiced, he did whatever, and he is where he is now. And he went out on, how many loans did he go out on? 5 or something like that? You know what I mean?
Amount, yeah.
And it's like, well, in those times, what happened with Kane? Was he not professional enough? Was he out part? You know, all those. I'm sure there'll be stories about back then why Harry didn't make the first team, because he was fucking not controlled with his diet or whatever it might have been. You're always going to get that stuff. Again, for matey, whoever, what do you say on Blue Sky? You don't tweet, do you?
I don't know.
Is it skeet? Is
that something like that? I've seen people say, something like that, haven't they?
Yeah, but whoever skeet.
That sounds like something dirty. It sounds like something like comes out your bum, doesn't it? You know what I mean?
Skeeted in my mouth.
Yeah, I've got to find a bog mate. I've skeeted. I'm sorry.
But yeah, I think there is generally undertones of with someone like Spence, which you know that's going to come up, really.
We'll move this on from here, Rick. Just quick. Did you see Cristian Romero's big mess up in the international break?
Did, man.
In Argentina's otherwise flawless historic victory over Brazil?
I did. I saw it and I was like, oh, do you know what? Because it's a huge clash, you know, the old enemy, I thought I'll watch the YouTube highlights or whatever, because I wanted to see the goals. I wanted to see the crowd reaction and stuff like that. And then I didn't know. I didn't see any reports on what had happened. And then I saw Brazil's goal, and I was like, "Oh fucking hell, that geezer's got mugged off." Did he just say cootie?
Yeah.
No. We're just around it, and it's like, "Oh my god, that is Romero." I was like, "Fuck, man." Imagine doing that in front of your own fans for Argentina, and how much the Argentinians put on the national team, and how much the players put on themselves playing and representing the national team. When you do that against Brazil, it's like proper fucking pie in the face. And they were 2-0 up at that point, and it went back to 2-1. So he must have felt dreadful. But
Especially when he's giving it the big I am all season, isn't it? Like speaking through the press, talking about Tottenham, how our trainers aren't very good. What was that, mate? What was that? You know what I mean? We've been facilitating you all season, lad. All right, show
what do
some
you
respect.
what do you think that was about?
What
The medical bit.
I don't know. When he first said it, I kind of thought, fine, like it's just what happens. Like players go and see other medical people all the time, all this type of thing, right? The fact he's done it again probably is a bit of a bar. But as we said at the top, we have sort of fired all of our medical team halfway through a season, so he
Did we
probably
actually
has.
do that? Did we?
I don't know. I'm just going with what everyone else says. Do you know what I mean? To be honest, I
Yeah,
haven't done any fact checking on it.
no, same. Um, I, I mean, that's crazy. Surely we couldn't have done something like that. Maybe one or two the head people left, or what? I mean, that is crazy. But yeah, I think it is. Like we're saying, I think this goes into the Jed Spence territory. Like these younger players. I know Romero isn't exactly young, but it's the.
He's still only up 25, isn't he? I think, which
Is
is
he
mad.
really? Fucking hell.
Yeah, I was staggered the other day when I saw that James Maddison's only just turned 28. I thought he was like
Really?
31. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
I think
mad.
we're all still kind of what's the word? Institutionalized with how.
He's 26, Romero. He's about to turn 27 actually at the end of April.
Okay. Yeah, I think we're institutionalized by the Man United Gary Neville years, and how players used to carry themselves professionally and stuff like that. And with the advent of social media, and how everyone is online now, and that is your kind of PR, so to speak. That's how you get your message out there. And he's been on a couple of times saying about thank you to the Argentinian medical staff, and it's like, so what's he saying about our staff? Like, is it this kind of backhanded? It's not even backhanded. It's a direct attack to say our medical team shit, or is it that Ange hasn't managed him correctly? Is it that he went off on 70 minutes against Fulham, and then we conceded and lost the game, but then he went to Argentina and played the full 90 minutes plus injury time against Brazil? Like,
And against Uruguay.
and against you, fuck me, did he really?
Yeah.
See again, like I'm caught in two minds here, because Ange is obviously trying to protect the player from injury, and it's the right thing to do, because he's coming back from a massive layoff, and we don't want to re-injure him. But then he's just flown halfway across the world and played two 90-minute intense international games, and then he's going to probably come back and get injured for, like, what do you do with a player like that? Like I don't have the stats to hand, but for the amount of time he's been with Tottenham and the games available in comparison to the games that he's played through injury or suspension is wild.
Are you taking the money, Rick, from Atletico Madrid this summer?
I mean, it's a real hard one, but at the moment it is really hard. Like, there isn't a player that I know. I mean, my football knowledge isn't fucking great anyway, but a centre back as aggressive, and how well he plays the ball and press resistant. He can find those pockets and those channels, waiting for the opponent's attacker to press him, and then just to put it over the top to Sonny or whatever, and find people, is fucking incredible. and there was some stat. It wouldn't have been. Maybe it was this season or last season, but there was a stat of that he was like third in the table of playing the most forward balls, and he's a centre back. And it was like it's those types of things, and what a lot of people like. I know, like there's always this. I look at the stats and data, or well, I fucking go to the game and I use my own eyes. That type of debate that always happens, but there are times during games where I'm like, people are saying this about this player. I'm not going to watch the game. I'm going to actually just watch that player and not do anything because I want to see for myself. And it's like, Romero's just this big brute. He's just this aggressor. He just goes into people and that's his game. And it's like watching him, and I just stood watching him for like 10 minutes. And the way that he plays the ball out and he waits with like impeccable timing, forget the goal against Brazil, where he waits for the player to press him and he finds that pass and he's a safe pair of hands. And if you want to play Ange's way, he's a great centre-back to have, right? Because he can play football. How and do you replace someone like that? Like, he is real top tier in that aspect for me. But if you want to challenge for titles, whether that be the league or cups or whatever, you have to have a consistent centre-back pairing. And as much as I hate to say it, and I say it over and over again, Gabriel and Saliba for the Gooners, you know, their defence is quality, and they are always at the heart of it. We need that from Van der Ven and Romero for a whole season. With Romero, I just don't see that happening. I really don't. Whether it's internationals, whether it's suspensions, whether it's niggles, I just can't see that happening. With Van der Ven, it feels like, for me and from memory, it can, because he's had a major injury and a recurring injury as well. But they're working their way through it, and I think he'll be fine in the long term. And he will be our mainstay centre back. But will Romero be there as much as Van der Ven? I don't think so. Now, is it the fact that we understand this and that's why we brought in someone quite similar as in Danso?
I love him.
Who is going to be able to, and then we've got Vuskovic as well that's coming in. Do you know what I mean? So maybe if Atletico, you know, stamp up a crazy amount of money, it is, we'll say, yeah, all right, fine, we'll take that.
Well, do you reckon it'll take 60, 70?
Yeah, I would be looking more on the 70 for me personally, because he's a World Cup winner. Didn't they won another like championship for Argentina? He's very well thought of within, you know, in world football, and for Argentina, I just think it's going to be incredibly hard to replace someone like that. That is a senior seasoned pro as Romero. It's just the injuries, man. I love him and I'd love him to stay at Tottenham, but we can't really be progressing as a team if we don't have consistency at the back.
No.
And with players coming in and out like Romero, it's just hard to rely on someone like that. Do you know what I mean? What do you think about him?
I think he's obviously a very good player, but we're all very happy talking about and intellectualizing. Well, what we need to get better at is selling players at the right time. You know, we've dropped the ball so many times in the past, not selling players at the right time. And it just feels like now the right time has come for Romero. It feels like there's just a bit too much needle between him and the club. You know, there was all the petty stuff earlier on in the season, not booking flights, or him feeling that the club should have booked his flights for him to go out to international football. The club was saying it's his, you know, it's him or the Argentinians FA's responsibility to do that.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? There's all these kind of things like coming out on the press speaking about the medical team. I think the point has been raised as well that Argentina do have another World Cup coming up next year, another World Cup where they are, you know, they could win back to back. They're one of the favourites for the competition. They're in absolutely incredible form still. As a country, they're actually managing to move into a post-Messi era really well. So he might want to be as sharp as he possibly can. He might want a season playing Champions League football. He might want to be now, like we say, he's going to be 27 at the end of next month. He might be thinking, I've only got a few years left at the very, very top. I'm in my peak. Tottenham are maybe getting rid of another. Yeah, there's so many reasons as to why I think if a good offer comes in, I just think now is the right time. And if I am brutally honest, as good as he is, the thought of him leaving doesn't terrify me. It doesn't worry me on a almost existential level as when we were faced with the idea of losing a Gareth Bale, when we were faced with losing Luka Modric, or faced with losing Harry Kane.
Yeah.
It doesn't bother me in that same way. I think Kevin Danso has come in, and I'm not saying he's as good as Romero or he's going to be as good as Romero, but he at the very least does a lot of things that Romero does really, really well. And I'm quite happy with where we'd be if we can get decent money in and reinvest it into another place in the team. I think it would be okay. What I would say is, like you say, when we talk about, and I'll end on this, Ricky, we'll talk about settled partnerships because you've got Saliba and Gabriel there, but I think it's important to highlight the fact that our last incredibly settled partnership that I think we probably took for granted maybe at times, although I don't think we did. I think we all knew how special they were. Toby Alderweireld and Jan Vertonghen. Toby has obviously announced that he would be retiring at the end of the season. Earlier on in the year, has pretty much had a season-ending injury, so that's kind of the end of his career. And Jan Vertonghen just this weekend has also announced that he will be retiring too from professional football, at least in a playing capacity. Any thoughts on those two, mate? Any fond memories? Any goodbyes?
Yeah. When you were talking up the centre back pair, and I thought you were going to say Gray and Dragerson.
But they took Radu for granted, man. All that hesitation on the ball. He was just playing the long
game. Yeah, they were. Again, it's one of those times where you look back with a smile and be like, "I'm glad that I watched Tottenham where Alderweireld and Jan were our centre back pairing. They were phenomenal centre backs, and I'm just, when you look back on an ex, for example, that you split with on amicable terms, you want the best for them. There's no malice or anything like that. And when you see them posting photos on Instagram with their new boyfriend, they've got a family and stuff, you're like, good for them. I love them. I wish nothing but happiness for them. That's how I feel about Jan and Toby. And I want them to go on and manage a team and do really well. And I'd always back them. They're proper Tottenham. I've always said that the way that Jan carries himself, his demeanor would make a perfect manager one day. And you just feel that somehow he'll come back to Tottenham as manager. And I don't know so much about Toby, but Jan, definitely. I feel like it's written in the stars. Do you know what I mean? Like with Vincent Kompany.
Didn't you? Like glasses on, looking all intellectual, you know.
Roll neck with a blazer on top. Yeah.
Like nice, kind of like classy, like, decent coat on.
Yeah.
With a decent brand, that's how classy I am, Rick. You know what I mean?
When he's walking into, like, he gets off the coach and he's walking into the stadium, he's got like one of those leather thin briefcases in his hand. Doesn't need it for anything, but it's just there. He looks fucking mint.
Yeah, he's just got his car keys in it. That's all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like nice, like exquisite, like Italian, almost like tailor-made loafers for him. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In The Sopranos, whenever you see Tony Soprano slipping on like a little pair of shoes, you're like, hey, look thick, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I love them. What do you think they'll come back? Either of them?
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe Ajax they'll go back to first. But I think it was Pochettino. Was it Pochettino or maybe Mourinho? One of them said that Jan Vertonghen would make a good manager one day, and I wouldn't be against it. Look, we have no idea. We have no idea how good or not he'd be as a manager, right? We can only kind of project this idea because he was this intellectual, wasn't he? He was somebody that seemed quite calm, quite assured, pretty intelligent. That
yeah.
Fancy the idea of it, but maybe he'll just be a director of football or something like that. But it'd be nice to have him back, wouldn't it? It'd be nice to have players like that back who maybe have a feeling somewhat of unfinished business at Spurs, because football is an emotional game, and we can look at this stuff and say it's silly and all this type of thing. But look at them up the road. They brought Arteta back. Arteta knows exactly what that crowd wants, how they react to things. He knows the narratives already. He knows what the North London derby is, so on and so forth. He knows that club inside and out, right? We maybe need a few more people like that. Like get some, and that's kind of part of the allure of bringing Poch back to a degree for me. Is he knows what the proposition is. He can hit the ground running already, right? Something like Jan Vertonghen, who maybe gave the best years of his career to us, but came away empty-handed, might still have that little fire in him to think, I can go back there, but this time I can make it a bit different. And on that basis alone, without even seeing his coaching credentials, bring him in the summer.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, I wouldn't be averse to him doing his coaching badges at Tottenham. Do you know what I mean? Like doing like an assistant role, not quite assistant manager, but like one of the backroom staff, working with the defenders. I mean, do we have a defensive specialist coach or anything like that, or anyone working with the lads specifically on defending? I don't think we do. I don't know, but it's one of those things. All the things that you've just said, he knows the club inside out. He knows what the rivalry means. He knows this, that, and the other. I think he would be a great person to come in, and especially to learn the trade. Didn't Defoe? He was with us for a while, and he was taking the under 18s and coaching and stuff like that, and he's gone on to pastures new. But yeah, I would love to see a kind of
Yaya was as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. Yeah. And he wasn't even Tottenham. You know what I mean?
But I think he left a good impression. I think a lot of people really, really loved him, didn't they?
Yeah, for sure. Where is he now?
He's Saudi Arabia's assistant manager.
Wow.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
Fair enough. Getting a decent wedge out of that, wasn't he? So, yeah. Thank you very much, Ricky, for coming on.
That's all right, mate. Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
Go on, do some plugs.
I don't really have any plugs apart from listen to Lads Anonymous, really. So Lads Anonymous is a podcast where it is Flav and I. We have one main topic. The topic is picked from our audience, and we sit and have a chat about it. And then we have two features at the end of the podcast where people send in their dilemmas, where Flav and I answer, and a feature called Something Only You Know, which is your deepest, darkest secret that only you know. So come and have a listen. It's available on all platforms. Just type in Lads Anonymous into Spotify, into Apple Podcast. You'll find us, or you can find us on social at Lads Anon Pod.
What's the because I always steal it when I'm doing pods and stuff, but I never explain it properly. What is the auto download thing? I love your little I love the plane announcement as well. That's brilliant. I was cracking up when you first did it, when you first dropped it in.
So statistically, first of all, the auto download thing. So the auto download is as soon as a podcast goes live, it's automatically downloaded to your phone. Now, if you're trying to not even play the algorithm, but yeah, partly play the algorithm, when a podcast goes live, within the first 12 hours and then to the first 24 hours, it's like, how many people have streamed this? How many people have downloaded this? Oh, fuck. X amount of people have downloaded this. So if you've auto-downloaded, the more that you get to people auto-download, the higher it should rank in the algorithm. That's the theory. So that's why I always try and get people to auto-download. And then even if you can't listen to the podcast there and then, it's in their Spotify, it's in their Apple, and they will get round to it when they want to get round to it, really. So that's why I always do the auto-download. And yeah, apparently marketing, it takes 7 goes of saying the same thing repetitively for people to get it one time or to action that thing. So that's why I thought about doing something a bit out of the box with the plain tannoy thing.
I like it. I tell people every week to leave a rating and a review on this, and they don't. They all little pigs. They all still listen, don't they? They'll still lap up their free content.
That's good. I mean, I think so. My thinking behind it, because when I'm doing it, I always feel kind of like we've just spoken about whatever it is the topic is on Lads and Non, but then I just go into normal conversation. Oh, by the way, you can follow and subscribe and all that. So it's just like one tone of voice. It doesn't shake you out of, you've just done the topics, now do this, that kind of thing. So anyway, I hope you enjoy it.
You critiquing my technique there, Rick? Is that just slightly there?
Your technique, the beginning of not only to the beginning of your pod with Ben. I was like, I saw on YouTube, you two were doing a pod together. I was like, fucking get in. This is going to be great. And then when I played it on Spotify, the instrumentals to an Oasis song, I was like, fuck, it's spaffing all over the shop. I was like, what a day. What a fucking day. Mate, absolutely loved it. Brilliant.
Thank you, Rick. Much love.